Alright, this video is for the documentation of the assembly and modifications to my Oklahoma Joe's Highland offset smoker. It's a Walmart exclusive. They retail for $200, at this time it's $268. My wife works there, so we get a discount, plus we got an additional discount for her having basically to work Thanksgiving, so this smoker was about $200. Decided to go with this purely because of the cost. There are other cheaper ones, and by cheap I mean really cheap, especially when you get in looking at this and seeing how these are built. I wouldn't want anything built to any sort of a lesser quality than what these are. These are alright so far. I haven't cooked on it, obviously it's not put together yet, but from what I've been reading, the modifications once they're done, they seem to be a pretty decent smoker. You get in close, the fit is pretty decent. You know, the gaps aren't too bad. This particular one over here is a little wider than what I would like, but hey, for two bills, what are you don't have much to complain about. This lower lip does overhang, and if you look, especially down on the one end, you can see where they didn't get the ledge clamped in right or tight before they spot welded it in. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that out and re-weld it. But my plans for the mods on this, I'm going to run one of the dryer ducts. This is aluminum, so I don't have to worry about the galvanization on a steel one causing any problems with the food. This perfectly fits around the exhaust stack, and it's thin enough, like it is super thin, that I believe that if I grind that weld out and take the burrs off where the screw goes through the bottom to secure it, I believe that this will fit in between the pipe nub and the exhaust. I won't know for sure till I get that ground out, but we'll see. Also, I have some Nomex sealant, door seals that I'm going to put around the cook chamber door as well as the Firebox door. I've already done that one, did that one last night. This door did not fit very well at all when I first pulled it out of the box. The bend on the door was like that, so there's a huge gap, so it wouldn't shut right. I had first tried to put a piece of furring strip or a giant paint stick or like a 1x2 underneath the edge and then press down on it to get it sprung back to fit right, but because it wasn't an equal radius all the way across, in other words, it was more bent like that, or like that, instead of nice and gradual, so it needed a little extra persuasion. So I was able to, because the hinges are welded on, unless you cut them off, there's no way to get the door off and mod it. So what I did was I was able to open this up and then lay it flat like this, lay the door across my workbench, and then I was able to take a rubber mallet across where it was bent more like that and straighten that out, and concentrate the blows across it, and got it fitting pretty well. The gasket is a Nomex. It's a self-stick or self-adhesive. I do have an RTV that I'm going to use between the cook chamber halves, or excuse me, the smoke chamber halves, and between the smoke chamber and the cook chamber. And I kind of got a big tube like that as a backup in case the adhesive on this Nomex fails. I've got a good high temp food safe RTV to glue it back on. I like this gasket. It's nice and perfectly cut. It fits on that flange perfectly. You know, there are some spots where it's just barely a ½ inch wide, which is what that gasket is. It's a ½ inch. It is only an 1/8 inch thick, so if you have a huge gap on your door, you probably maybe either need to go with the rope seal, or you're going to have to do some tweaking on your doors to get them to fit better before you put that stuff on. That sets far enough back right here that if I was to lay that gasket in there, it would fit flush with this flange. In other words, with the gasket on here and the gasket down here, and you shut the lid just like it is now, you're still going to have, it's not going to seal up as well as it should. So that's why I'm going to cut the welds and reclamp that. Probably I may take that whole thing off and make sure that the outside lip is far enough out so it lines up with the door correctly, then re-spot weld, reattach the flange for the cooking grates. The Firebox is definitely a leaker as far as airflow. You can see that gap all the way around. There's no flange like there is on the doors, so that when you to seal that against. And I have seen guys go in from behind and weld in, some plate steel or strip steel behind it to seal that up. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld it on the outside. That way, even though I'm probably going to use a basket for most of my cooks, if I decide I want to not use the basket, but if you weld in a flange up here all the way around, that's going to cut down on the size of the hole. It's probably not that big of a deal, but by welding some steel on the outside of the door, it will move with the door and still leave your opening as big as it needs to be for getting anything in or anything out while you're cooking or after you're finished. But that gap is big enough that basically if you opened up your intake about that far, that's how much you're losing extra. So if you needed to really snuff it down, with that closed all the way, you're still going to be drawing in a huge amount of air, and the gap down here is pretty good too. So I can make a little cup or drip rail type deal that would go underneath it, and it's not going to seal 100% without a gasket on it, but it'll slow down that airflow enough that it should be almost like it was sealed up. But that's about it for right now. I need to start grinding that weld out for the tube, test fit the duct, and so far this has been sitting overnight. It was a little tight, not sealing real well, because this, I had it fit perfectly to the Firebox, but then when you go putting the gasket in it, this really needs to be the same as the outside radius of this, so it's still sprung a little bit. Maybe a recommendation might be to run your gasket around whichever gasket you're going to do, and then start tweaking on banging on this door to get it to fit the gasket, because otherwise you'll be fitting it twice. If you fit it to the Firebox without the gasket, then it won't fit as well with the gasket. But right now I'm pretty happy with the way that it's sealing up. But anyway, I think that's it for now. We'll check back a little bit later. Okay, I got the may not be able to see it back here. There we go. I got that weld seam ground down, as well as where the bolt comes up to anchor or tighten up the stack. With that flange gone now, you can see how much room there is around, kind of how loose. I mean, that's for a production assembly line overseas type deal. That's fine. But with that gap, though, if you wanted to seal that up, you'd have to squirt a whole bunch of RTV in there, and I will have to have a little bit of a sealant. But by extending the exhaust stack down near the grate, you should be able to lower the temperature, or a more even temperature distribution, because it can't come out of the firebox straight up to the top and then out that hole. Instead, with the diffuser plate that I'm going to put in, it'll force it low anyways, down below the cook chamber, below the cooking grates, and then it'll exit right about there. But with that gap, let me set the camera down. With that shoved in there, you can see it's a much smaller gap that'll have to be filled, less sealant to use. And if I shoot right across from this flange to the one on the other side, where the grate cooking level would be, you can see how close that would be. And so, but we'll wait till we get it assembled and outside before we fully attach it and seal that all up. But with the duct, let's see if I can get that out. There we go. Because it overlaps, and again, this is aluminum, where it overlaps, I drilled or ground one of the rivets out so that I could separate the two pieces, plus the thickness of the rivet would interfere. And then I took some tin snips, made a cut all the way up about as far as I thought it would go, scored it diagonally with a razor blade, and then bent it once, twice, and it come right off. So, and then that will allow this to close up just about like that when it's in between that nub and the exhaust stack. So that's it for now. Okay, we're going to try and, this is the main part that's of this lower flange or lower seal area for the cook chamber door. This end's not too bad. There is just a little bit of misalignment between those two, but probably not enough to get too all fired up about. But this one down here, you can see that gap. It's just horrendous, and there's no way to get any kind of a gasket to seal because these two flanges are so far apart. So what we're going to do is the spot weld that's up here and that weld that's down there, we're going to cut those out, grind those back, and then reclamp that angle iron and then re-weld it. Alright, we got our welds cut through, and now you can see maybe once that's welded back on there, everything will be on the same plane. So when the lid shuts, even with the gasket, it should seal up. The reason why this particular unit's got such a problem is, you know, the angle iron, that angle piece, that lip that's welded in, is straight. It's the outer, the drum, or the barrel, that you can kind of, maybe you can see that it's the outer piece that's, this piece right in here especially is where it's bowed in, and so that's kicking that kicked that piece out, and they just, you know, they went ahead and they just didn't bother to do it right. But I thought about cutting that piece off and trying, because it's kind of bowed in all the way across from, let's see here, I may not be able to see. There. See, this lower piece of the drum is welded onto this upper piece, and this lower piece is kind of welded in from the upper piece. And really, in order to fix it right, you'd almost have to cut everything off and pull this lip out. But I think with a few concentrated blows with a hammer and dolly, kind of like doing some body work, if I just push that out a little bit, I think it'll be fine. The main thing is that will be lined up with the piece that goes up top, you know, for the gasket, which is ultimately, you know, the main problem. Anything else is maybe just, you know, more time than it's worth. But we'll see what we can do. Well, we got it all welded up, burned through the coating, the paint, or I don't know if it's a powder coat on this or not. This spot right here was where I tack welded the inside, and there's 5 or 6 tack welds from the factory, but they tack weld it and then they paint it. And it bubbled it. I'm not going to worry about it. It didn't break. It didn't break the bubble or break the paint, so I'm going to leave that. But over here it did bubble it up. Mainly, most of that's from I kind of plug welded that big old gap, and so it got hot, but that's okay. Just get me some high temp, you know, smoker paint or barbecue grill paint, and paint that up, and I'm not going to worry about it really. But I'm going to dress that weld just a little bit so it's a little bit smoother. It's pretty smooth as far as the, you know, where the gasket's going to ride, but smooth it out a little bit, and then we'll paint it, and we should be ready to start assembling it. Alright, we've got it 4 or 5 coats on that bare spot. You can still see the line. I mean, the coating from the factory is pretty thick, and it'll take, you know, quite a bit of buildup to get it even remotely close to the same thickness. But the main thing is that how nice that flange looks compared to the way it looked before, and all the way down. I did beat on it a little bit with a big old hammer and got pushed out just a hair, but it's good enough. So I think maybe 1 or 2 more coats of paint. Was able to, since I had some paint, went ahead and sprayed the inside where I ground down the weld, just to help keep it from rustling in case any water would happen to get in past the RTV that I'm going to use on the inside. But I think we're looking good.